I'm Oral Hershiser, and I am on Blue Review. Hey, this is Sean Green. You're watching the Blue Review.
Bum, bum, ba-da-da, bum, bum, bum. I guess pew 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 pew, but not pew pew
Yeah,
pew
we,
pew
we,
pew
we can
pew
get
from
some
yesterday.
lasers.
3 or 4 pew
Not
pew
the,
pew
you
pew pew
know,
pew pew. No,
maybe
that's
not the
fine.
full
It works.
complement of lasers, but some lasers. It was a good weekend for the Dodgers. Welcome everybody to the Blue Review presented
Yeah.
by LAX on a Monday. I'm Marcas Grant. That is Greg Bergman. We'll be joined by our pal Jeff Spiegel in just a moment. But overall, I mean, Greg, it was about as good as you could imagine, especially because of who the opponent was. It was a fun weekend for the Dodgers.
It's always fun taking 3 or 4 from the Padres and winning the season series at the same time because now that's 7 of 10 games they've taken from the Padres and they only played 13. So that's a nice win of the season series and of everything else. But if it wasn't against the Padres, I'm not sure they win 3 or 4 of those games. But the Padres are just so bad that it helps in that sense. So, but hey, I'll take 3 or 4 against any team any day.
Absolutely, we'll do that though. Bring in Jeff in just a second, get his thoughts. But first, want to let you know the Blue Review is powered by LAX. The next time you're heading to LAX, look up. You'll see the future of airport travel in action as the new all-electric Skylink People Mover train is undergoing testing. For more information, visit lawa.org/ESPN. All right, let us bring in our friend and co-conspirator Jeff Spiegel. Jeff, your thoughts on the weekend? It was fun. Maybe for some dramatic type reasons. A lot more fun for Dodger fans than it was for Padre fans for sure.
Yeah, you guys are just so typical. They played terrible yesterday, and all you want to talk about are all the wins and 10 of their last 13 and 14 of their last 19. So all you want to
I
talk about.
know.
They had no hits till the fifth inning with 2 outs yesterday, Marcus. This is a travesty. This team stinks. I don't know what you're talking about.
Blow it up, trade
uh,
everyone, be sellers at the deadline. It's all
it's got
done.
to be sellers at the deadline. Yeah, I was kind of half watching it. I was also like getting ready for the Mexico England game at the same
Right.
time, and I'm like, I just look. They're down. They're down 1-0. Like, hey man, just get a hit, please. And once Miguel Rojas got the hit, at that point I was kind of like, all right, I can at least exhale a little bit because I don't know
Victory.
if you guys know this about me. I have this weird thing. No matter how good this team is, I start every game and I just say quietly to myself, "Please don't get no hit." And like that really is it's an irrational
Here.
fear I have about this team every single day. So once they get one hit, to me, like the pressure's sort of off. Like, okay, maybe they lose, but at least they didn't get no hit. That's sort of how I approach every single
Is
game.
like a your entire life thing or just this year thing? Is it because they're so
Oh, it's
good?
not. It's more. It's
When
more
did
than
this
this year.
begin?
It definitely goes back several years. I don't know exactly when. You know what? Honestly, it might have happened after the Jake Arrieta no hitter. I think that might have been sort of where that started. From that moment on, once I got no hit by Jake Arrieta against the Cubs, I think from that moment on, I'm like, please just don't get no hit again. Like I don't want to be on. I don't want to be on Sports Center. Watching Sports Center when when people still did that regularly. I don't want to have that happen. So yeah, it's been going for a
Marcus,
few years though now
yeah,
for
that was
sure.
that was August 30th, 2015. So it's like
So
it's
yeah,
11 years ago. I think you can let this one go.
it's like, I don't think at this point now it's
But
just
at
good
the
luck. I
same
think
time, yeah, I mean the same time since 2016, they've been pretty good.
they've been pretty
Pretty
good. So
pretty
I'm
good.
just saying. I'm
So
just saying. All right. So yeah, the Dodgers they win 3 of 4. Yes, they did lose 5-2. I want to go back though, Jeff, to earlier in the series because yes, everything's been wonderful and good, but there was one thing that has sort of stuck in my craw, and that is after a really good run of play. Roki Sasaki's hit a couple of speed bumps in his last
Yeah.
couple of starts. Your thoughts on what we have seen from Roki in his last, I'd say 2 or 3 outings after what looked like a really good upturn for him.
He's such an interesting case as a pitcher to look at because I tried digging into some of the numbers to say, okay, what is the thing? Is it like a whiff rate correlated to whether good or not good? Is it zone rate that's correlated? And it does feel like zone rate is probably the biggest thing, like how much he is able to be in the strike zone. The weeks when he is 40% are his worst starts, and the weeks that he's been 55 plus have been his best start. But I think ultimately with Roki, and this is highly concerning to me, is the root issue seems to just be his ability to be consistent with his mechanics. And it's like we've now seen him do it at the major league level. It was a 6-game sample size. Yes, a couple were against the Angels, but a couple were against real teams. So I believe he has it in him. But Greg, I'm starting to get worried about a guy that can't maintain his mechanics for more than 6 starts, 7 starts, 8 starts, and then it falls back apart again. And when it falls back apart, we're looking at like what a guy who seems to be one of the worst pitchers in Major League Baseball. So I now believe he can do it at the Major League level because I've seen it. But in some ways, I'm like more concerned about, are we just always going to be like one start away from everything falling apart and being a mess for a month?
So I'm totally with you on this, and it is completely concerning. But it's interesting because you know the in zone rates, all those kind of things, the IZR plus, if you have those numbers in front of you for guys on Baseball Savant. But look at what his numbers are, and then look at what Emmett Sheehan's numbers are, because Emmett Sheehan is one of the top in baseball in not being inside the zone. I think I saw on the screen yesterday there was like 41% of the time Emmett Sheehan's not in the zone, and yet he's getting through it by only giving up 1 run, or he's not doing much. People aren't swinging at pitch, or are swinging at his pitches outside the zone, versus Roki when he's probably not as much being outside of it. So it's interesting between the two that they're both nowhere near the plate, but one guy does not get swung at and the other one does not. And I wonder how much, that comes into play in all this. But I think Roki has been frustrating. I don't know if I know Dave and Mark Pryor and the entire team are looking into Roki about whether or not he's tipping his pitches. And they were talking about how like Shohei and Yamamoto were talking like where his positioning of the glove is when before he pitches, and that could be a little bit of a tell. Maybe that was earlier in the season, but I would love to know, Jeff, if you have anything on the in zone rate between the two of them, because Emmett is the exact same way.
Yeah, I was trying to look that up real quick and I couldn't find it. But the thing that's interesting about Sheehan, well, first of all, let's just say he hasn't been good. So, like, we're not talking about a pitcher in Emmett Sheehan who has a 2-point-something ERA. I think it's like 4.9, or maybe it's 4.91, I believe, is his ERA. The thing about Sheehan is he's 90th percentile in chase rate and 88th percentile in whiff rate. So what's unique about him is he's actually able to generate elite whiff and chase rates while being pretty much average in batted ball quality and everything else, which I would guess is the difference between him and Roki Sasaki. As far as like Roki not being able to generate those types of things. Yeah, I mean, Roki's chase rate is 62% and the whiff rate is 70%. So 70th percentile, excuse me, not 70%. So my guess just off the top is that's the difference, is that Sheehan is getting guys to swing and miss outside of the zone, where Roki is, league average at getting outside the zone. So if you're one of the worst at being in the zone and only league average at getting guys to chase, that's a problem.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of where they are now. Greg. I mean, what did you think of Sheehan yesterday? I mean, I know how you generally feel about Sheehan. Yesterday's sort of a kind of a weird start. I mean, he only gave up the 1 run. He did walk 3 guys, had 5 strikeouts. It felt like it was sort of all over the place with Sheehan. He gets pulled after 4 1/3 with a couple of guys on base. I don't know how you evaluated what you saw from him yesterday.
I thought it was the same thing as his last start. His spray pattern was all over the place. I thought he was just as wild as he was before. But the Padres just swing at pitches all over, up high, down low, outside, inside. It didn't really matter to me. I mean, you might be able to have a different spray pattern. I thought it was the same as his last start. I wasn't overly impressed by it, and I wasn't overly upset by it because the results are the results. But as watching him pitch, I didn't see anything different. And I know I'm going to come across as an Emmett Sheehan hater, but to my point about Roki Sasaki, it's the same thing. Roki Sasaki just isn't getting the swing and miss that, for whatever reason, that Emmett Sheehan is getting. That, I'll put it this way. The Dodgers should have lost 3 or 4 of those games, not won 3 or 4 of those games, and yet they still did. So that's all that matters, what the results were. But Emmett Sheehan was bad. Roki Sasaki was bad. Yamamoto was amazing. Besides that, but otherwise, it was, it could have gone either way very, very easily. And I wasn't particularly impressed by Emmett Sheehan's start yesterday.
Yeah, I know one of the things they kept mentioning on the broadcast was the need for him to make competitive pitches. It sort of it got repetitive after a while. I mean, you had a 4-man booth, which was a lot with Jason Benetti, Jake Peavy, and CC Sabathia and Oral Hershiser in there. So you had three former major league pitchers, and it just felt like every pitch Sheehan threw, like, well, that was competitive. That one wasn't competitive. It's like, okay, we understand now. Like, we don't have to do this every single time he throws the ball. But that was sort of the thing, was that he needs to be able to not necessarily live in the strike zone consistently, but be there enough that when he dips out of the strike zone, at least the hitters have to think about that. And I thought the first couple of innings he was able to do that. Eventually, as the game went on, we saw him be sort of less competitive in the zone, and that kind of got him into some trouble. But in the end, it was an okay start, I guess, which has sort of been kind of the MO for Sheehan. It's been okay.
Results are results.
Sheehan.
Yeah. Looking it up real quick, by the way, Roki Sasaki's pretty much right down the middle as far as being in the zone. But if you look start to start, you'll have some of the worst starts in Major League Baseball at like 40%, and then a bunch of the best starts. Emmett Sheehan, to your point, is worse at being in the zone. He's like 25th worst or something in Major League Baseball. Interestingly enough, do you know who the number one pitcher at being in the zone is in Major League Baseball?
Being in the zone? Shohei?
Justin Wrobleski. Justin Wrobleski, shark, baby, just attacks the zone.
The shark just attacks. I love it. See, that's the kind of pitcher I gravitate to, is the one that is constantly attacking, is not getting, and it's also like the results are going his way at the same time. Now, when the results don't go his way, and eventually that's going to happen that way when you pitch like that. But I do love the fact that he's attacking at least. He's not walking guys, whereas Sheehan and Roki constantly walking dudes.
Well, and I think Wrobleski's stuff, I've joked that his stuff is catching up with his box score in the right way. Like the box score cannot be supported by the underlying metrics underneath it. But the good news for Wrobleski is I see the underlying metrics actually moving in the right direction. He's starting to get a little more velocity, starting to get a little more swing and miss, starting to get some of the stuff that makes that more sustainable. So I still don't think it's going to be a 2.8 ERA at the end of the season. But I'm more encouraged now about Wrobleski than I was even when it was like a 0.9 ERA or whatever for the first month and a half of the season.
I do want to get into Wrobleski a little bit because you want to talk the All-Stars. The All-Star team was announced over the weekend and just missed out the Shark, but we'll get our thoughts on that for a second. I did have a question, though, because we come into this morning. The Dodgers have a 14-game lead in the division over both the Diamondbacks and the Padres. They're the only team that has a winning record in the National League West. They are also 2.5 games up on the Brewers for the best record in the National League, in fact, for the best record in baseball. Greg, there's a part of me that feels like, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be the Padres or the Diamondbacks, but I feel like we need the Brewers or the Braves or somebody in the National League to keep winning, because a part of me was like, I don't want this team to go into September and not have at least some meaningful games. Like they're starting to open up gaps in here, and like I know it's only July. I know there's still a ways away to go, but it does feel like they need to have something meaningful to play for in September and not just sort of cruise through the month to get ready for the playoffs.
So I feel like because it's this team that's back-to-back World Series champions that have been through as much as you can kind of go through when it comes to the postseason. They had a pretty easy route against the Yankees, and they had one of the most difficult series in baseball history against the Toronto Blue Jays, that they're used to this kind of how it is. I don't think normally I would agree with you, but because it's this team that have been together for so long and have been through so much together and have won back-to-back World Series championships, I trust them to like pick it up when they need to pick it up. They're all professionals. They're all veterans. But at the same time, like I get it. I want them to be more like the 2018 Boston Red Sox, where they just took off and just skated the entire way, all the way through the playoffs. And they did it against the Dodgers in the World Series, where they won in 5 games, and it really wasn't that competitive of a series. So they had to win one game in 18 innings, just like last year. But at the same time, like That's what I want to see from this team. I want to see them just put their foot on the gas, put the foot on everyone's neck, and just push through and make it an easy season all the way through. Now, that's probably not going to happen. They're going to go through ups and downs, but I don't know about you, Jeff, but I want them to just cruise the whole way through.
I want it to be miserable, actually. I want it to be 5. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, yeah, I'd love to see them win a million games. And, I mean, we talked about a little bit on the show I was on last night. Like, this group is going to get, in theory, more healthy. So I think there's reason to believe that the after All-Star break version of the Dodgers is actually going to be, on paper, a much better version of this team. And if that's the case, you know, I the way I phrased it last night, I'll ask you guys this question. Right now, they're 59-32. They're winning 65% of their games. Obviously, they've played 91 games, so more than half. But if I gave you 29.5 as the number of losses that this team has in the second half of this season, would you take the over or the under, Marcas? Over would be basically they're worse in the second half than they are in the first half, and under would be it's an improved version of this team.
Oh, I'm gonna say they're gonna get better. So what is that? The under?
Yeah.
Because I think everybody, to your point, everybody's going to get healthy, right? I mean, you're looking at after the All-Star break, presumably there's going to be Blake Snell back, Edwin Diaz coming back, Will Smith is back to doing baseball activities. Tyler Glasnow still seems to be in the shadow realm. I have no idea what's happening with him. But those guys are coming back. I know Tommy Edman was scratched to start yesterday, but ended up getting a pinch hit appearance late in the ball game. So like all these guys are going to start to come back. Even Kike Hernandez looks like he's ahead of schedule right now. So like at some point the Death Star will be fully operational, which again I've been saying for a couple of weeks now. Feels like bad news for everybody else around baseball that this team they haven't had their full complement of players at any one point during the season. They're still 27 games over 500 and they have left the rest of the division in the dust. And once they get everybody back, Greg, then they really could take off at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they go the under also. And you didn't even mention Evan Phillips is going to come back today, which I don't know what they're going to do for the 60-man roster spot for that. I'm sure you have some idea, Jeff, but I haven't. They have
a 40-man spot. When they DFA'd, I think it was Jonathan Hernandez. I believe it opened up a 40-man roster spot.
Everything
or they'll DFA one of the catchers, maybe.
Maybe. Well, yeah, because they'll probably just DFA Chucky Robinson since he just got sent back down. By the way, prayers out to Elias Alfonso Jr.
For sure. Absolutely.
But I think it's under, and I think it's going to be because all these guys are coming back, and it's just going to be. It's like all of a sudden you're looking at a healthy team that's not going to force you to play a Sheehan or a Roki, depending on what one of those guys can go on the IL when Snell comes back. Like there's a lot of things that can be moved around, and then you're just healthier altogether. Once this team is healthy, they're almost unstoppable. And that was the whole reason that they built it this way, was to be unstoppable. So, I go with the under for me.
Yeah. I think that seems likely, which we can talk about it more maybe in a week or two. There was that stretch on the schedule right after the All-Star break. And we all looked at it at the start of the season and thought, man, this is going to be a gauntlet. And not that it's going to be easy necessarily, but there was right after the All-Star break where they're at Yankee Stadium, then at the Phillies, at the Mets, against the Mariners, against the Red Sox. I mean, it was just a stretch where it looked before the season like, man, this is going to be absolutely brutal. Well, the Yankees aren't playing great right now. The Phillies actually have played really well since they fired their manager. The Mets, anyway. The
Mets need to fire everybody.
The Mariners have been just barely above 500 this year. The Red Sox have been a bit of a dumpster fire. So again, like not that they're walkovers. These are still professional ball players and they're still, major league teams, so they can win at any given point. But Jeff, that stretch looks a lot less daunting now than it did, I think, when we looked at it back in like February or March.
Yeah. No, I joked. Did you mention the Cubs? Because I think they're like the 5th or 6th team that they play coming out. I joked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My favorite stat is that the Cubs have won 10 games in a row twice this season. They've also lost 10 games in a row so far this season, which to be able to do all three of those things in 90 games is really impressive. But but the good news is the back half of that schedule is a lot of Giants and Rockies and Padres and so it's the front half is loaded with teams you've heard of, and the back half is I think 2 series. They get 7 games against the Reds in the last month of the season, so I think it's going to be a smooth landing as they head towards October.
Yeah, I'm looking at September, and it's a lot of Nationals and Reds and Marlins and Giants and Padres. So yeah, so whatever.
Hey,
whatever
Marlins best team in baseball of late. Haven't you heard, Marcus? Best team in baseball, the Marlins. They're like 22-9 in their last 31.
I might be able to name 2 Marlins, maybe. They got a Conine there, right? There's another Conine floating around there in Miami, if I remember correctly.
Always a Conine.
At one point, I don't know if he's still there.
There's always a Conine there. The All-Star team was announced over the weekend. I was at a 4th of July party, and the World Cup had been on. It stayed on Fox, and then they did the All-Star selection show, which I know they wanted to create content, but the All-Star selection could basically be an email. Anyway. Somebody asked me, do they do this every year? I was like, no, normally you just put out a tweet, and like every team puts out a tweet about their own players or whatever. But the Dodgers, 5 guys make it to the All-Star team. The 4 that you would have expected, with Shohei being the top vote getter of all, but then also Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, and Andy Pages. Congratulations to Andy Pages for making his first All-Star team. And then Yoshinobu Yamamoto gets selected to the All-Star roster, and we'll see if, depending on how the rotation works out, whether or not he actually pitches in the All-Star game. But Jeff, no Shark. The Shark feels like a snub. Was this just a numbers game that just there just weren't enough spots for him, because it feels kind of sad he got left out.
Yeah, real quick on Yamamoto, his last 8 starts, he has a 1.48 ERA. So, talk about a guy that put together 2 months of the season to go get himself into the All-Star game conversation. But I would say this: the more I thought about it after we did a show last night, I think Wrobleski is going to be on this roster sooner rather than later. You hinted at it. There's a ton of these starting pitchers who are not going to be available because of when their starts line up. And you look at Wrobleski. I mean, Greg loves the stat of wins. He's tied for first among wins in any pitcher other than the reliever from the Brewers, who has like 1 million wins. So 10 wins for Greg. And then he's 8th in the National League in ERA with a 2.80 ERA. So I think it's just a matter of time before he gets it. I think Tanner Scott had a case to be made as well. I don't think he's going to do it because he plays for the Dodgers, and they're not going to give the Dodgers 12 different All-Stars. But I would, if I had to guess, I would lean towards Wrobleski finds his way onto this roster, as long as he doesn't get blown up in his last start before they start naming alternates.
Yeah,
I love wins.
Greg,
wins are my favorite stat in the history of.
Exactly, you love wins.
Yeah, it's the anti-analytic stat. So I'm just crediting you with loving wins.
Wins mean nothing. Wins mean nothing for a pitcher, but okay, we'll take it.
Hey man, I know it's changed, but it still means something to me. Damn it. Maybe it didn't mean as much because we're not going to see any more 20-win seasons, and that does sort of make me sad.
Yeah,
but
Can we clip
that.
wins mean nothing out of Greg's mouth? Just him resigned, leaning back. Just wins mean nothing to me, and we'll just play that when we need to.
Has nothing to do with you.
I don't know. Have they announced the home run derby guys yet, or do we know? I can't imagine we're going to see any Dodgers in the home run derby this year.
I mean, who would it be besides Shohei?
Caminero said he's doing it.
Caminero.
I guess
should be doing
Muncy
it because. Yeah, I guess he could.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I can't imagine any of the Dodgers are going to be in the home run derby this year. Shohei would be the only one. I would feel like if you're Shohei, it's great to be there, but also I need a break, man. I can't do all of the things, So we'll see how that goes. But I don't know. It's all coming up really quick. By the way, the draft coming up as well too. So that's going to be
That's
something
the
to
thing.
keep an eye on. We'll have to call up our pal Bruce Kuntz once the draft is done and get his take on some of the prospects that now entered the organization. So a lot of things happening. You got the draft, you got the All-Star game, and then we're coming up to the end of the month. We have the trade deadline too. So a lot of folks
Yes.
coming and going within the organization in the next couple of weeks. Should be a lot of fun. Jeff, anything new for folks to keep an eye on?
Well, actually, my old friend Justin Lorber is going to be on with me later this week to preview the MLB draft a little bit, as well as give an update on Mike Sirota, who can't help himself but keep getting on base, and some other Dodgers prospects, so that will be fun. I did a collaboration with Doug McCain last week, which was a lot of fun, so had never talked to that guy. That was a good time. And then, of course, All Dodgers, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday nights. You can find me at the All Dodgers podcast as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Be sure to check that out for sure. Self-promotion here. I'll be on with DeMarco and Travis as normal on a Monday. So you can check me out there from 3 to 6 this afternoon. But that'll do it for this edition of the Blue Review presented by LAX. Stick around for the Sedano and Cap morning extravaganza coming up right after us. Thanks to everybody in the chat for hanging out. Thanks to Tim for production assistance as well. For Jeff, for Greg, I am Marcus. We'll see you tomorrow here 6:30 to 6:55 on the ESPN LA YouTube channel. See you.
So.
Review.